Violins of Hope is a collection of violins that were played by Jewish musicians during the Holocaust. This collection was assembled by Israeli violin maker Amnon Weinstein, who spent the last 20 years restoring these instruments and bringing them back to life. I first heard Violins of Hope in 2008, and that's when the university where I teach, University of North Carolina at Charlotte, began making plans to bring the collection to America for the first time. As a historian and as a musician, I was deeply touched by the very thought of what these violins and their owners had been through together. In 2011, I spent a week with Amnon in Israel. I saw the violins for myself, and I learned more about his journey. It was during that trip that I became inspired to write a book about the Violins of Hope. The violin played a very important role in Jewish lives during the Holocaust. For some, the violin was a liberator that gave them the means to leave Europe when it was still possible. It was through playing the violin that they were able to get out of Nazi Germany before it was too late. For some, the violin was a comforter in mankind's darkest hour. Having music and having the violin lent a sense of normalcy and allowed them to keep a sense of dignity in the worst times. One of the Violins of Hope was played in an orchestra at Auschwitz, and through playing in that orchestra, that musician was able to survive the Holocaust. What I think is important about the Violins of Hope is that each represents an individual story. When we think about the Holocaust, if we're thinking about 6 million deaths or 11 million deaths, it's just too much for the human brain to fathom. But through each story, we see one musician and what he went through with his family and how he used music to stay alive. These instruments are called the Violins of Hope because that's what they represented during the Holocaust. No matter the darkest of time, however painful the experience was, people held on to music and they held on to their violins, and that's what gave them hope.